Kitco Mining's special coverage of the Mining Investment Event of the North is brought to you by EMX Royalty Corp.
As the industry struggles with high inflation and rising operating costs, companies like Gold Royalty are getting a lot of attention. Joining me now is John Griffith, Chief Development Officer at Gold Royalty. John, welcome to Kitco Mining.
Oh, thank you very much. Great pleasure to be here.
Glad to have you. So, royalty companies have a big advantage over conventional mining companies and other types of investments when it comes to inflation in particular. Can you explain why this is?
Yes, absolutely. Well, there are two fundamental reasons. The first is royalty companies own a share of the revenue. So we take a piece of the top line over a diversified portfolio of mining operations. So we don't have any exposure to the operating cost, to the capital cost, yet we retain exposure to exploration success and any expansions that might occur at those operations. And the second reason is, gold in an inflationary environment is a great hedge, and no better way to get exposure to gold than through a royalty company.
All right, so you have the advantage of not being hurt by the inflating costs of operating, of financing, and then you're also actually the rising value of gold. You're essentially being paid in gold, and the rising value of gold is another advantage.
Absolutely, and just to give you an example, our royalty portfolio is approximately 220 assets, but our cost base is fixed. We've given guidance that our costs are going to be between $7 and $8 million, but that's fixed. We could run a company 10 times the size with pretty much the same cost base. So there's a tremendous amount of upside as our revenue grows, as those assets, those 220 assets, start to deliver. Our costs don't escalate like an operating company's costs would. So there's tremendous leverage.
Right, so you essentially have a brain trust that's making decisions on where to put this money, but you don't need to ramp up enormous amounts of production, enormous amounts of employees, equipment, outlay as you get larger.
Exactly. We have 8 full-time employees, and as I said, we've got 220 royalties. We started 2 years ago with 18 royalties, so we've grown from 18 royalties to over 220 in 2 years, and our cost base is pretty much going to stay at that $7 to $8 million on an annual basis. Our revenue by 2027 is going to increase approximately tenfold. So it's a tremendous amount of leverage without the cost inflation.
Right, now let's talk a little bit about those assets. You've got you're invested in some of North America's largest gold miners. Why is it important for Gold Royalty to be anchored in North American mines?
Great question. Look, I think there's no doubt that we're living in a world where there's a tremendous amount of variation and flex and vulnerability in geopolitical risk around the world. We have 85% of our net asset value in the 2 provinces of Quebec and Ontario in Canada, and in the state of Nevada in the US. And that means we've got a very stable geopolitical risk profile. Those jurisdictions are ranked by the Fraser Institute as I think 3 out of the 5 top mining jurisdictions in the world. And that's in terms of prospectivity, rule of law, availability of labor. So that's very important for for stability in a global environment that is certainly seeing a lot of variation and flux, as I said.
Right. So not only are you in North America, but you're in some of the most favorable areas, provinces, and states within North America.
Exactly. And in addition, you did mention that we have some assets that are really fundamental in those particular jurisdictions. So we've got a royalty on what is Canada's largest gold mine, being Canadian Malartic. And our royalty is really about the future of Canadian Malartic, the Odyssey project. In addition, we've got a royalty over Cote Lake, which is going to start production next year, and that'll be one of the top 3 producing mines in Canada. And then finally, another one of our cornerstone assets is in Nevada. It's on a project called Ren, which is the northern extension of Nevada Gold Mines' Goldstrike operation. And Goldstrike, I would remind viewers that Goldstrike was the foundational asset of Franco-Nevada. And we've got a royalty over the future of Goldstrike. So it's really quite phenomenal that we're not just about quantity of royalties, but we're also about quality of assets.
So what are some of the key developments for Gold Royalty in 2023? What are some of the achievements so far? What are you looking at between now and the end of the year?
So we have a very robust M&A pipeline. It's probably been busier this year than we've seen in a long time. And look, I say a long time. We're only 2 years old, but certainly since we started the company, and I was one of the foundational members of the company. So tremendous amount of activity, and I think part of the reason for that is when you look at operating companies and you look at the capital markets environment that we're in, it's very challenging for them to raise capital. Royalty and streaming provides a stable source of capital for the industry over a period of time, whether the market is robust or whether it's weak. And so for that reason, I think we're seeing a lot of activity in our M&A pipeline. I'm hoping very much that we'll be able to announce some good news to our investors from an M&A standpoint to continue to grow the company, and in particular, focus on increasing our near-term cash flow. We have peer-leading cash flow growth over the next 3 to 5 years. And so we're really focused on bolstering our near-term cash flow. And we're very, very excited about some of the prospects that we're looking at. And hopefully in 2023, we'll be able to announce some of those transactions.
Well, great. Well, we'll definitely have to have you back when you're ready to make those announcements.
Oh, absolutely. I'd love to, because I'm very excited by them.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today, John. It's
Absolute pleasure. Absolute pleasure. Thank you.
I'm Ernest Hoffman for Kitco Mining. Keep it here for more coverage from the mining investment event of the North in Quebec City. And don't forget to subscribe.
Kitco Mining special coverage of the Mining Investment Event of the North is brought to you by EMX Royalty Corp.